John heard this. And John writes later than everyone else, right? The first three Gospels already exist. John's read them. But John's the best friend of Jesus. And John says, listen, I've heard all this stuff. I've read the other three Gospels. And I've heard everything that's being talked about today. And some of you are saying that Jesus was not human. And I'm here to tell you, God became human. Why did it have to be Jesus? I said in Bible study this morning that you got to help me remember, but I just remembered that we got to talk about this because it's important. And I want our theology to be right. I want us to use logic in some ways. I don't want you to just believe stuff because I say it. I would even go as far, and you young guys might be offended by this, but I would even go as far as say, I don't want you to just believe the Bible because it's in the Bible. That's a good reason. But let's bring a little bit more into it. Why did it have to be Jesus? Could it have been Michael? Michael the Archangel, could it have been him? No. Here's the problem. You see, Michael's a created being. Would we say a created being is infinite or finite?
Finite.
God, we read in Genesis 1, the infinite, eternal God, Yahweh, the Ancient of Days, created the heavens and the earth. In the process of the first 6 days of creation, he creates man. Infinite God creates finite man. Finite man. Now stay with me. Finite man sinned. Who did he sin against? Infinite God. Now, we have the law of retributive justice, right? We understand the principle, and our attorneys are schooled in this. And basically, we would say that in our justice system that is based upon the Bible, that we want, as much as possible, the punishment to fit the crime. Have you heard that? Yeah. Punishment's got to fit the crime. Retributive justice. Let's have everything be about equal. So we're laying the groundwork. If, in fact, finite man sins against an infinite God, what kind of a sin has he just committed? Finite or infinite? You got to stay with me. He's committed the sin against an infinite God. Therefore, the sin is an infinite sin. What kind of a penalty would an infinite sin be justified through? What kind of a penalty can we come up with that would now be appropriate using the law, the principle of retributive justice? Infinite penalty. Well, is there an infinite penalty? Yes, there is. And what is it? Well, Romans says that the payment for sinning against an infinite God is to be eternally separated, infinitely separated from God. So here's what we would say. Finite God creates, infinite God creates finite man. Finite man sins against infinite God. Infinite God now is owed something by a finite being. Finite being owes a penalty that is infinite in nature to an infinite God. Can finite man pay an infinite debt that he owes? It's impossible. But the problem is, there's only one infinite being, and it's not Michael. It's God. But God doesn't owe the debt. I hope you're treading water with me as we go through this. If the infinite being infinite being in the universe and in the known, everything that we know. But he doesn't owe the debt because it's owed by a finite being. How will the debt ever get paid? How will the penalty ever be paid? You see, there's only one solution to the problem that I've outlined for you. There's only one. Now, we can think of all kinds of ways to appease an infinite God. Am I right? Why, we can come to church. Why, we can get out of bed and dress up and look real good on Sunday morning. You know what? We can throw a few coins in the offering plate. By the way, that'll be coming later. Why, I think we could even get out to our community hall and make some pancakes. And I think if we just work hard enough and keep working and keep working and keep working and keep paying and keep paying and keep paying, maybe I can appease God. Okay, maybe you can, but you can never satisfy the debt. Why? Because the debt's an infinite debt. That means you cannot, Mr. and Mrs. Finite, ever pay what you owe. We're back to there's only one possibility. And the possibility is this, that an infinite being would become somehow in nature finite. And then as an infinite being, he could pay an infinite debt. Do you understand this? So we track this. So when John, the Apostle John, the elder, as we call him, John the Elder, says that the Word, the Logos, Jesus himself, God from Ancient of Days, became flesh. What he's saying is this. The infinite, all-powerful, omniscient being, the only one, became finite. Now, once he's finite, can he pay an infinite debt? Yes. Why? Because this being that we would see as being finite, confined to human flesh and bones, right? Confined to the shell that we find ourselves in. And so we literally say, when we see someone walking down the street, you say, well, there goes Paul Steen. Well, really, you're probably saying in your mind, what you should be saying, well, there goes Paul Steen's body. But that's not what you say. You say, there goes Paul Steen. But Paul Steen is more than a body. You're not hearing from my body right now. You're hearing me communicate thoughts to you that go beyond the material. You're hearing from my immaterial side. And you can say, well, I can open up your brain. I can operate on your head and look in there and I'll see your brain. Yes, but you won't find my mind. Why? Because my mind is spirit. Jesus said, those that will worship me in spirit and in truth. Okay. God in Jesus becomes a man. He becomes finite. But his spirit is infinite. Was Jesus literally killed on the cross? Yes, of course. Was he raised from the dead supernaturally? Yes, absolutely. Does he still live today in bodily form? Yes, I believe he does. Did he exist in bodily form before he came into the world? No, God is spirit. But in Jesus, we have a unique being that is finite. How so? Because he was in all ways like us. But we have a being that is fully God, the Chalcedonian teaching. Fully God and fully man. Why did it have to be Jesus? Why couldn't it have been the Archangel Michael? Because only Jesus was God. And only Jesus was infinite. So now he takes the form of a man who owes what? An infinite debt that a finite person can never pay. And yet, because he is now an infinite being in a finite body, he alone, no one else. John calls him the one and only. In John 3:16, the unique Son of God. Put all these together. Only